Hello. So here I am back again, Steve Robinson here, pastor of Riverside Elim, and we are walking through all of Hebrews together, and we've tried to break Hebrews down into some chunks, and we've broken it down into 20 different chunks. But this chunk today is much, much bigger than normal, and today we are looking at all of Hebrews chapter 7 and all of Hebrews chapter 8. So I won't read to you these two big chunks of scripture, but I would recommend, um, before listening to some of my thoughts on this, hit pause or just go away, have a read of these chapters yourself, let's say Hebrews chapter 7 and Hebrews chapter 8. Have a read of them yourself, or have the Bible in front of you, and then come back. And remember, this is an in-depth theological teaching. This is just some of my thoughts as we're reading through Hebrews together. So, Hebrews chapter 7, here we are once again. Once again, we find ourselves talking about Melchizedek, someone who I'm pretty sure many of us haven't heard lots about before, and now we've already had him mentioned a couple of chapters earlier in Hebrews, and now the majority of chapter 7 is turned over to him. Well, it's not really, because chapter 7 is really about Jesus, as is chapter 8. But these chapters, as I say, they are trying to turn the attention back on Jesus. But chapter 7 continues on the major comparison between Jesus and Melchizedek, the high priest. So verses 1 to 10 of chapter 7 covers some of the ground that we've covered previously in these videos. Who was Melchizedek, and why on earth was he so important? So the author of Hebrews once again takes time to remind the second generation Christians, who were the original readers of this letter, just who Melchizedek is. Why? Because these readers were considering turning their backs on Christ and considering going back to the Jewish faith. And Melchizedek was a big deal in the Jewish faith. Basically, he was the high priest to Abraham, and Abraham is the father of Jewish faith. So if Melchizedek was the high priest to Abraham, that puts him up there in the circles as the high priest of all in the circles of Jewish faith. This is a full reminder in these verses just of why he was so important to Jewish believers. He may not rank as highly in our Gentile, in our non-Jewish circles, but in Jewish circles of faith, he was regarded very, very highly. And remember, it was these Jewish circles that the original readers were considering going back to. So, having read verses 1 to 10 and establishing just how important Melchizedek is in Jewish circles, the author then starts to compare Melchizedek to Jesus Christ, whom the original readers were considering turning away from. Verses 11 to 28 start comparing Melchizedek to Jesus and explaining why Melchizedek is above all human priests, including why Jesus is above all human priests, including Melchizedek. Firstly, if human high priests, were enough to save us and bring about a relationship with God, then none of us would have needed Jesus to come back in the first place, Because the human priests weren't enough is one of the reasons why Jesus had to come in the first place. He could do what human priests couldn't. And as verse 22 says, Jesus came to give us a better covenant. No longer saved by the law or works, but saved by grace. The grace of God shown to all people in and through Jesus Christ. The law wasn't saving people. In fact, what the law was doing was showing just how much of a barrier there is between us and God. So Jesus came, and he came to fulfill the law and bring us the law of grace to make a way for all of us. No human priest could do that. Not even the high priest, Melchizedek. So what makes Jesus this better high priest? Well, for a start, he lives forever at the right hand of God. Forever. No human can do that. He saves all, Jesus does, who come to him. No human can do that. He's always, Jesus, able to intercede for us at the right hand of God. No human priest could do that either. Quite simply, Jesus is better than any human high priest because he isn't held back by our humanity. He is the priest of all priests. He meets all needs. He is holy. He is blameless. He doesn't need to offer sacrifices for his own sins because he's always sinless. The only sin he's ever had to sacrifice for is my sin and your sin. And he did that by dying on the cross for us all and rising again forever. He is the perfect high priest. Wow. We then get chapter 8, all about this high priest we now have in Jesus Christ, the highest of all priests, not only in the past, but now and forevermore. He's sat at the right hand of God, interceding for us. He is the Son of God. He's not a mere human being appointed by humans to deal in human-only things. Jesus is higher than and above all possible human priests. How many things have happened? I mean, how many bad things have happened because human church leaders, human vicars, human ministers, human priests have been led more by their own humanness than Jesus Christ? We're all people and we're all going to get it wrong from time to time, but Jesus is the ultimate high priest, and anything any church leader says should never conflict with Jesus, our highest priest. We are reminded here that the Jewish priests serve the law and Christ came to fulfill the law and set us free. If the old covenant was enough for us all, then Jesus would be unnecessary. But a new covenant was required for us to be saved. And this was only found in Jesus Christ and through Jesus Christ. The author from Hebrews even shares with us some verses from Jeremiah to help us see that that we couldn't fulfill the law ourselves. And so the new covenant under the highest of all priests, Jesus Christ, deserves our complete attention. These verses beg the question of all of us. If Jesus is the highest and the greatest of all priests, why go anywhere else other than to him?